Hello everyone, welcome to watch my channel Iyris Insights. This is Iyris. Today it is our first time to break down the novel Pride and Prejudice. We are going to read through the whole book, but today we will dive into the chapter 1, and I will read the lines first and then I will take you to break it down. Okay, let's start. Pride and Prejudice, written by Jane Austen. Is the truth universally acknowledged that a single man in the possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife? However, little known the feelings or views of such a man may be on his first entering the neighborhood. This is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered the rightful property of someone or other of their daughters. "My dear Mr. Bennet," said his wife to him one day, "have you heard that Netherfield Park is let at last?" Mr. Bennet replied that he had not. "But it is," returned she, "for Mr. Long has just been here, and he told me all about it." Mr. Bennet made no answer. "Do you not want to know who has taken it?" cried his wife impatiently. "You want to tell me, and I have no objection to hearing it." This was invitation enough. "Why, my dear, you must know, Mrs. Long says that Netherfield is taken by a young man of large fortune from north of England, that he came down on Monday in the chaise and forth to see the place." "Why, my dear, you must know, Mrs. Long says that Netherfield is taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England, that he came down on Monday in the shade and for to see the place, and was so much delighted with it, that he agreed with Mr. Morris immediately that he is to take possession before Michaelmas, and some of his servants are to be in the house by the end of next week." "What is his name?" "Bingley." "Is he married or single?" "Oh, single, my dear, to be sure." "A single man of a large fortune, 4,000 or 5,000 a year. What a fine thing for our girls." "How so? How can it affect them?" "My dear Mr. Bennet," replied his wife, "how can you be so tiresome? You must know that I'm thinking of his marrying one of them." "Is that his design in settling here?" "Design? Nonsense. How can you talk so? But it's very lucky that he may fall in love with one of them, and therefore you must visit him as soon as he comes." "I see no occasion for that. You and the girls may go, or you may send them by themselves, which perhaps will be still better, for as you are as handsome as any of them, Mr. Bingley may like you the best of the party." "My dear, you flatter me. I certainly have had my share of beauty, but I do not pretend to be anything extraordinary now. When a woman has 5 grown-up girls, daughters—" "My dear, you flatter me. I certainly have had my share of beauty, but I do not pretend to be anything extraordinary now. When a woman has 5 grown-up daughters, she ought to give over thinking of her own beauty. In such cases, a woman has not often much beauty to think of. But, my dear, you must indeed go and see Mr. Bingley when he comes into the neighborhood. It's more than I engage for, I assure you. But, considering your daughters, only think what an establishment it would be for one of them. Sir William and Lady Lucas are determined to go, merely on that account, for in general, you know, they with no newcomers. Indeed, you must go, for it will be impossible for us to visit him, if you do not. You are over-scrupulous, surely. I dare say Mr. Bingley will be very glad to see you, and I will send few lines by you to assure him of my hearty consent to his marrying whichever he chooses of the girls. Though I must show a good word for my little Lizzie. I declare you will do not such thing. I desire you will do no such thing. Lizzie is not a bit better than the others, and I am sure is not half so handsome as Jane, nor half so good-humored as Lydia, but you are always giving her the preference. They have none of them much to recommend them, replied he. They are all silly and ignorant like other girls, but Lazy has something more of quickness than her sisters. Mr. Bennet, how can you abuse your own children in such a way? You take delight in vexing me. You have no compassion for my poor nerves. You mistake me, my dear. I have high respect for your nerves. They are my old friends. I have heard you mention them with consideration these last 20 years at least. Ah, you do not know what I suffer. But I hope you will get all right, and live to see many young men of 4,000 a year come into the neighborhood. It will be no use to us if 20 such should come, since you will not visit them. Depend upon it, my dear, that when they are 20, I will visit them all. Mr. Bennet was so odd a mixture of quick parts, sarcastic humor, reserve, and characters. That experience of 23 years had been insufficient to make his wife understand his character. Her mind was less difficult to develop. She was a woman of mean understanding, little information, and uncertain temper. When she was discontented, she fancied herself nervous. The business of her life was to get her daughters married. It's so laced with visiting and news. After reading this chapter, we are going to unpack the chapter with some key questions. And to help us to understand those questions, we are going to provide some background information first. So, the book was written in the Victorian era. The Victorian era, the first period of British history from 1830s to 19th. It represents the heydays of Britain's first industrial revolution and the British Empire. Together with the Edwardian era, it is regarded as the golden age of British Empire. So, during this era, the marriage will be a different way. So, in the 19th century, a woman's marriage was typically a legally subordinate, often economically disempowering union, though the ideal of compassionate marriage based on mutual affection gained traction. A woman was expected to manage the household and sacrifice her individual needs for the family's social standing, while men were expected to provide financially. Women had few rights to their own property or wages, and divorce was difficult, with men often gaining custody. In rare situations, a marriage will be ended. So, under this background information, it will be so clear to jump to the question 1. So what is the significance of novel's famous opening line, and what theme does it introduce? In the novel, the intentions behind this marriage is far from innocent. It reveals that the essence of this marriage is tied to Miss Bingley's social status and wealth. It also implies this is a universally acknowledged fact. However, how can we know how that happened and what happened during that era? So, we will talk about the question 2. How does the chapter comment on the limited social and economic opportunities for women in the 19th centuries in England, particularly regarding marriage and inheritance? Actually, from 1830 to 19, it is also called Victorian era. First came the Georgian era, followed by Edwardian era. During Victorian era, Britain's overall power was bolstered by its naval expansion, and industrial revolution and the global trade reached its summit. However, the social development could do little to conceal the rigidity of a class hierarchy. However, the social development could do little to conceal the rigidity of a class hierarchy. The conservationism of moral values, and the patriarchal nature of the marriage system. If we use one word to describe women's marriage of this era, we would say it is called subordinate. Usually the marriage is based on a mutual affection, but that is not a fact in Victorian era. When a man or a woman enters the marriage, she is going to lose all her household and property and sacrifice her individual needs for the family. Women had few rights about their property and wages. Divorce was so difficult and very rare in Victorian era. Furthermore, the compatible marriage hindered women from pursuing higher study. Furthermore, this compatible marriage hindered women from pursuing higher study. The woman's household management was centered on husband, not themselves. They seemed to be financially compatible couple, but actually they were merely couple matched by social system. A desirable wife was expected to be patient, self-sacrificing, and to always yield to her husband's opinions. For many women in the Victorian era, marriage was closely tied to fulfilling the needs of the social hierarchy system. So enter this hierarchy system. So what does the chapter suggest about the societal role of marriage for women and pressure on families to secure wealthy partners for their daughters? So in Victoria era, marriage for Mr. Bennet's daughter is not for just indulging vanity, but for consolidating their social status. Because women did not function as their family breadwinner, so they have to rub shoulders with people with power and status to avoid slipping into poverty. The Bennet's family is also an example, because their family's estate isn't entailed, meaning when Mr. Bennet dies, his wife and daughters will lose their home and all financial support, with no right to inherit property, earn independent incomes, or access social welfare. The 5 bandit girls face a terrifying fate: poverty, dependence on distant relatives, or even destitution. For women of their class, marriage was not just a choice about love, it was the only way to secure a stable future. So I think that is why Mrs. Bennet wants a daughter to find or secure a wealthy partner for their daughters. On the other hand, it also reveals what kind of person that Mrs. Bennet is. So we'll jump to the question number 4. What does Mrs. Bennet's obsession with marrying off her daughters reveal about her character and priorities? So it reveals that Mrs. Bennet was a short-tempered, anxious in this chapter, and a single-minded person. So her obsession stands not from vanity but from raw fears. She knows without her husband's wealth, her and her daughters' prosperous life will be ended. So I think she's not a bad person, but she's very panicked to secure a wealthy man for her daughters. Okay, so today we have read through the chapter 1 and we had brought up few questions about our protagonist. So how would you think Mrs. Bennet is? And next time we will talk about Mr. Bennet's character. Compare with Mrs. Bennet is far more patient and farsighted. Okay, so let's end today's session and see you next time. Bye bye.